So as you have heard from this report, the individual known as Tyler Keur was replaced by a Mike Smith starting around 2013. For some reason or reasons, the United States military, the MK Ultra program, thought that the original Tyler Keur, one of the original Tyler Keurs, I should say, there was probably several, but one of the main ones went on to be known as Jeremiah Bowsher. It's this individual. And maybe as he started getting older, he began looking a little bit evil. I think one of the last times I saw this individual known as Tyler Keur number 1 was at the end of 2012. And I had driven into Danbury and I had not seen this guy in over a year. So I knocked on his door. And when Jeremiah Bowsher, also known as Tyler Keur number 1, when he came to the door, his eyes looked like shattered glass. That's the only way I could put it. There was something wrong with his eyes. They looked like they were cracked. And I took one look at him, and the exact thing I said to him was, "I see that they've got you too." And he said, "No, they don't. They don't got me too." And I cut the conversation short and I walked away. So I think that's the last time they used Jeremiah Bowsher as Tyler Keur. And at that point, around the end of 2012, going into 2013, they decided to start to groom Mike Smith, my ex-girlfriend's little brother, to be Tyler Keur. So I'm going to call him Tyler Keur number 2. Mike Smith is known as Tyler Keur number 2. So he was many years younger than Tyler Keur number 1. He was probably 15 or 20 years younger than Tyler Keur number 1. So when I was reviewing these reports, I asked myself, why has Mike Smith been given so much credit by the U.S. military? Why does he continue to be such a significant agent that they used to attack me with? In my opinion, Mike Smith is not that intelligent. I guess that his IQ, at most, will be around 90 to 100. He is not that bright, and he has to be told what to do through the MK Ultra program. He has to imitate Tyler Keur. And the answer that I came up with is that I had given him power. I had given him credit. So I'm going to need to explain that to everybody so that you do not walk into this same situation that I walked into by giving these people credit or putting the attention onto them. Because these people are terrible and they'll never give you credit. They'll never try to help you out. They'll never give you as a reference. They'll never give you the same respect or courtesy because that is how they are. So let me explain what happened so that you do not walk into the same situation that I walked into. So in the spring of 2013, I had just published my novel. My first novel called Leech Mob, a novel about a Connecticut gang. I had just published that. Around that time, I had tried to move up to New Hampshire to be close to my wife and 2 daughters. But as I explained, the Office of Probation in Derby, Connecticut set a situation up to make that impossible. To first offer me a chance to transfer to be closer to my family. They offered that, and then they went out of their way to make sure that that did not happen as a form of harassment. So I was back living in Connecticut in a tenement house in a little tiny room in Derby, Connecticut. And so I said, I'm going to go back over to Tyler Keur's house and see how he's doing. Because the last time I saw him, he did not look good. But Tyler Keur was one person who tried to keep in contact with me over the years. He would be consistent in calling me up every 4 or 5 months to try to maintain a relationship. So the least that I could do was to go over to his house and make sure that he's okay and see what he's up to. Him being a fellow writer and somebody I've known for many years. That's what I told myself. So I went back over to his mom's condo in Brookfield, Connecticut. So this was around May May of 2013. So I knocked on his door, and he looked 100% better. And the reason he looked 100% better was because he was no longer Tyler Keur #1. He had been replaced by Mike Smith, a kid who was 15 or 20 years younger than Tyler Keur #1. So Mike Smith, acting as Tyler Keur, he first acted a little bit agitated with me because I did not call him up sooner and tell him about the production of my book, the publication of my book. So he was finding out on Facebook, and he did not like that. In his opinion, I should have contacted him and told him about the book, him and I being friends. So I gave him a couple copies of my book. I think I wrote on the inside of the cover on one of them, "To my friend Tyler Keur," and then signed my name. And I gave him 2 copies of my book. So how I looked at it was that there was a little bit of a stir on the internet among our little circle of friends from the Brookfield, Danbury area about my book. And I did not want to act like I should be the center of attention. I've never been egotistical. I've never been somebody who needs to be the center of attention. So in my opinion, what I wanted to do was create like a scene. And I was good at audio video production at that time. So I wanted to create a lot of videos, interviews, that would focus on the people that I knew in that area, that were also writers and artists and musicians. At that time, in my opinion, the people who I hung out with were always very creative people. That's what I thought. A good deal of them were musicians and artists. So that is what I thought would be our success. That's what I thought I should do, is create a scene where there was a group of people who would all have their own identity. I could make a documentary about each individual person and what they were interested in. Help them create a YouTube channel if they didn't already have one. And if they had a YouTube channel, I could help them create videos for it because I was pretty good at creating videos. And I thought that by doing that, we could all help each other out and all reference one another to our own friends and family. And that would branch out. And eventually we would be more well known on the internet. And then people all across the US and all over the world may be interested in our crew. That was what I thought. So I said to myself, let's start with Tyler Keur. For as long as I can remember, he was a poet. I think in 1994, he came back from his first year in college, and he had something like 10 or 20 poems that he wrote in college. And one was called Messiah of Discontent. And I think that it was written really well. At this point, I think he stole that poem. I think he stole the poem from somebody that he knew up at college. I don't think he wrote that, because that is what these people do. These so-called artists and creative people that are all part of the MK Ultra program. What they do is steal other people's ideas. They steal other people's creativity. They steal other people's work. And they pass it off as their own. And so they look creative. And that is what this group was attempting to do with my book entitled Leech Mob, a novel about a Connecticut gang. They wanted to steal that. So as long as I can remember, Tyler Keur was a poet. So I said, you know what? Let's go ahead and make a bunch of new videos of you reading poems, because your YouTube channel has only one video on it, and it's not that good. So I had gotten pretty good at audio video production. So I said, you know something? I published a book. I made a bunch of videos for my book. So it's time for me to go ahead and put the attention on some of my buddies who need some help here. They need some motivation. And by doing that, they may feel motivated to help get the word out about myself and everybody else in our little crew. If people don't help them, why would they feel inclined to help me? If I published a book, what type of friend would I be if I were to go there and say, okay, tell all your friends to buy my book, put all the attention on me so that everybody wants to buy my book and I become a huge success and everybody owes that to me like I'm some sort of king. So that is not me. And instead of doing anything remotely like that, I said, let me put my endeavors on hold and focus on some of these other writers and artists in this area so that we could all stand out together. So at the beginning of 2013, he had a CD that was entitled Adam Rush. And he said he had been working with a guy named Benoir. That's spelled Benoir. And he is a guitarist and jazz musician, I think originally from New York City. And they made something like 200 copies of this CD entitled Adam Rush. And he was going around with his CDs in his hand, trying to sell them at different bars that he would go to. So I told him, that's not the way to get yourself known. We're going to have to make a bunch of videos for you and put a lot of this on the internet, and that will create some publicity for you. So I started creating one video after the next for Mike Smith, also known as Tyler Keur number 2. One video after the next, all through the following months, all through the spring, summer, and fall. I even began to write music for him. I used GarageBand on my Apple computer to write music for him. And then I took videos of him reciting poetry and I edited it, making music videos for him. So I ended up making something like 20 videos for this guy, the very best videos for him. And so at a certain point, a guy named Malcolm Tent, who ran an independent record store called Trash American Style. And so at a certain point, a guy named Malcolm Tent, who ran an independent record store called Trash American Style, he had a radio show. He invited Tyler Keur on his show because after I started making a bunch of videos for him, it seemed that he grew in popularity in that area. It seemed like a lot of people wanted to work with him. Other musicians, they invited him to open mic. A lot of musicians wanted to play backup to him, reciting his poetry at these different bars and coffee shops and halls in the area. And then he was even being interviewed on the local radio station. And he is being interviewed by an individual known as Malcolm Tent. And do you know, after doing all of that for him, Tyler Keur would not even mention my name once. He would not mention his buddy John, who helped him create all of these videos, all of these cool videos that he has on the internet now. Every time we hung out for the past year, we spent the entire time videotaping him, and then I would go home and spend hours and hours of my time creating music videos for this guy to help with his publicity. And then he goes on the radio station and he will not even mention my name as somebody who helped him create these videos, or mention that his friend wrote a really cool book called Leech Mob that everybody may be interested in because it has to do with Danbury, Connecticut. That is how these people are. That is what they are like. That is how they are naturally. That is their personality. They don't care about anybody but themselves. That's what the military likes. That is what the establishment likes. These greedy, self-centered egomaniacs that only care about themselves. That's what they promote. And that's what they work with. So this little puppet named Tyler Keur, and he is being interviewed at the local radio station about his poetry, and he will not mention the one person who just created 20 music videos for him and has just published a book that he spent 10 years writing about the Danbury, Connecticut area. And I think if you were to ask some of these egomaniacs, they would say it just didn't occur to him to say anything about me. And even if it did occur to him, he wouldn't be allowed to say anything about me, because this guy, Mike Smith, also known as Tyler Keur #2, is not a real person. He is a fictitious character. He is an invention of the military's MK Ultra program. He is an act. He is a fake. And his boss, Robin Williams, also known as Admiral Dennis Blair, has ordered him, don't say anything about John Harwood, because that is the guy that we're trying to keep down. That is the guy we're trying to steal this book from. The MK Ultra program's plan, the U.S. military establishment's plan, was to kill me, steal the book I wrote, and they would probably rewrite it and portray it as something that is coming out of England. So when I look at Tyler Keur's poetry, I do not think that he has written all of these poems, especially the better ones. I think he's stolen them from different people he was ordered to hang out with, different people that the MK Ultra program contracted him to hang out with, people such as myself. So he stole a lot of these poems from other people. So at the beginning of 2013, he had a CD that was entitled Adam Rush, and he said he had been working with a guy named Benoir. That's spelled Benoir, and he is a guitarist and jazz musician, I think originally from New York City, and they made something like 200 copies of this CD entitled Adam Rush. So at some point I said to him, "Who did all the music for you on your CD?" And he said, "Benoir did." And I said, "Well, how did that work?" And he responded, "I would go down to Benoir's studio that was located in Long Beach, New York, and I would pay for studio time." And then I asked him, "So Benoir just came up with that music when you were in studio together, right?" And Tyler Keur responded, "No, that's his life's work. Those songs that you hear on my CD is the music that Benoir came up with over the period of his life." And I said, "Well, he just gave those to you?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, you have to put his name on the cover. You should redo the album cover and put his name up here. Music by Benoir. This isn't fair that he's given you this music here and you just put Adam Rush on the cover and you do not mention this guy that essentially made this whole album. You have to at least put his name on the cover." And at that point, Tyler Keur, also known as Mike Smith, also known as Adam Rush, he flipped out and he jumped up out of his chair and he charged at me. I was kind of standing there in his room by the window, and he charged at me because I was holding the CD and looking at it. And he rips the CD out of my hand. He opens up the CD and says, "Look, you see? Don't you see Benoir's name is right there?" And he points to the inside of the cover, kind of halfway down. In small print, it says "Music by Benoir." You could barely see his name. It was like a minor footnote that this guy had anything to do with this album, when in fact this is Benoir's life's music, the music he's written over a lifetime. So Tyler Keur's response suggested somebody who is a little bit psychotic, a little bit egotistical, and extremely selfish and greedy. So I guess starting around 2005, from 2005 through 2011, Tyler Keur #1 would call me up ever so often. I would say maybe 2 or 3 times per year. He would call me up. He would say, why don't you drive down to Brookfield to hang out? So I haven't seen you for a while and we'll catch up. I lived in Waterbury at the time. So from around 2005 till 2011, when I would go visit Tyler Keur, he would mention an individual named Benoit. And Benoit was a jazz musician. I think he played guitar and saxophone. And I'm pretty sure that he lived down in New York City, in Manhattan. And Tyler Keur always said he was going to go visit Benoit in the next week or two. Or last weekend, he was down in the city hanging out with Benoit. And he showed me a photograph of him. I think it was on a website. And it was a guy with very long hair on a small stage. And he was playing either a guitar or a saxophone. I cannot really remember, but I could not see his face too well. So the funny thing is that the guy that was going down to hang out with Benoit around the year 2005 is not the same guy in 2013. By 2013, Mike Smith was acting as Tyler Keur, also known as Adam Rush, and he had Benoit's music on this Adam Rush album. So supposedly, at some point, Benoit took all of his music, it was like jazz music, recorded Tyler Keur reciting his poetry, and he overlaid it on his own jazz music. And then they printed out a CD called Adam Rush. So on the cover, it just says Adam Rush. It doesn't mention Benoit at all. And so it was this Benoit that supposedly gave Tyler Keur his life's work. And he did not even want to put this guy's name on the cover of this CD. So once again, this is somebody who apparently helped him with his whole production. And he doesn't want to give any credit to this guy at all. This is what Mike Smith, this is what the son of Robin Williams, also known as Admiral Dennis Blair, this is his normal state. This is his mode of operation. This is what they do. They employ armies of these little fake egomaniacs that want to steal poetry from people that they hang out with and say that they wrote these poems. They want to steal music from the people that they hang out with and then create CDs with that music. They don't even want to mention the people that wrote the music. And then they want to go on radio shows and they will not even mention the person that created 20 music videos for them, that wrote music for them, a fellow local writer who wrote a book about the area. And the truth is because they want to steal that book from him. Just like they stole everything else. Because these people are not creative. These people are not artists. These people are fakes. Everything about these people are fake. They are actors. That's the only thing they know how to do, is fake everybody out and put on an act. So Tyler Keur is not even a real individual. He is something like 7 or 8 different agents that all act as Tyler Keur, that they send around to hang out with real people, or people that are musicians from New York City, writers from Brookfield, Connecticut, poets from New Jersey. I think one of the Tyler Keurs went to college in New Jersey. I think it was called Writer College in New Jersey. And that was when he first became interested in poetry and came back that summer after his first year of college with a book of poetry. I'm going to say it's Tyler Keur #1, but at this point I am convinced that several different individuals acted as Tyler Keur. But I don't want to digress any more than that. I want to keep on subject here. My guess is that he stole that poetry from whoever he was hanging out with at his college in New Jersey. I think it was called Writer College in New Jersey. And he said that while he was in college, there was a guy that was studying English as a major, and they did not like him because he was a dick. And one time they were all hanging out, and this guy that they did not like said, "Your poetry sucks, and your poetry sucks." And he pointed at Tyler and another kid that they were hanging out with. So for Tyler to speak poorly about somebody probably suggests that he may have been a target. And he was also taking English classes, and maybe he had an interest in writing or poetry. So that may have been somebody that Tyler Keur would steal poems from, and then come back from college and then read them and say that he was into poetry.
Funny how. I'll make sure to leave a tip in heaven, large and generous for once. If heaven has bars, when would they close? Early or late? I hope heaven has no after effects, no Vietnam flashbacks, no dirty politician hacks. If I had a choice, I might choose hell. Who needs wings? You got fire. But if heaven has a good bartender, I'll start a tab. A cute waitress, I'll be sure to stiff her. Willows whisper in the shade of the absent moon. Blackness becomes a beacon to creatures of love and lust. A candle melts, lopsided, still glowing, bleakly. Where the tide draws back into the ocean, where the light vanishes into shadow, where we leave particles that the water forgets to sift. With pain we hold regret, shattered antique pictures of bashing bearded souls, eroding the shore with verse. Stick houses, a thin disguise, barrier and dream, glazed by mint leaf. Brittle pulse, cradles invasion, no changes that can be saved before erasing. Her sharp needles always bleed. A smell in pine, barren. Nature's menthol, gift-wrapped echelon, caged in laughter, in shaft of stickled vine, hanging shards in lost holiday glow. Her sharp needles always bleed. A mean reprise, dream and barrier. Oh comrades, oh companions, can you make these words out in the dark? My tears are spilling out of this poetry. It's a shot of whiskey, a sour tasting rage of Coleridge. The air sweeps over hills, surrounding these sacred plains. We built them with gentle whispers of merging passion.
Sleep easy in the bunker. Sleep quiet on your knees. Shield the rocket red glare with precious eyes. Sometimes it frightens me to know, to see people thrust against the wall, sleeping to the constant sounds of our bomb ego. But we have New York, the city that never sleeps. The bombs will never cease. Sleep easy in your bunker. Sleep blind to the world. A famine to human contact. Blistered to care. People, we are not people, but place and time. Lost.
I could take a punch. First thought, seize the bottle from the drunken beast, save the face of the beautiful barmaid. Second thought, secure the arena of the only bar I would stand up and fight over. I could take a punch. The night was brisk and clear, the main street at ease. Images you find in wooden barriers, lost newspapers, flying into desperate gutters, silent graves, steps clear on the decapitated and cracked concrete, fertile soil grown upon civilization. The defeat of blinded love. God Street Mechanics. I am a poet, indifferent, standing on a cliff with abused thoughts, running from the mountains downward into a lush valley, entering as a whisper in the womb, an outlaw of intimacy, a collector of lost sunsets, unaware malice. I'm a lasting menace, absorbed in silence. Brooklyn. A skip through Brooklyn. Shadow waiters cast new light on old surroundings. Into memory we restrain over tacos and wine. The glisten of holy art. A skip through Brooklyn. I got a broken nose. Cut down, jointed bone. I'm not going down first round. In wrecked noise, acute to sound, distinct in disruption, or lines not secure, scattered by comedy and leisure and soft design. I got a broken nose, cut down, jointed bone. I'm not going down next round. In between screams, you were popping pills like it was going out of style, laughing in a dream like a madman. Watching a cigarette burn, powder on your nose, exploring your mind during your work hours. Severed by the poppy seeds, in a Wizard of Oz, or confused like Alice, where everyone is mad. One fairy tale dies, the page is turned, but you remain haunting me by your presence. A shadow not afraid to scream. On the brink of mankind's fate, anger, fist over fist, clutched, fading lights dimmer under a dim moonlight, eyes blinded, nerves jittered, senses amplified. Put him through the ringer again. Skin his soul till it bleeds a track for you to follow. Put him through the meat grinder. Release the lion from his den. Pin him for tonight's feast. Hang the phoenix for a laugh. Break his heart till it bleeds a track for you to be hollow. Your voodoo dolls won't work on him this time. His resurrection, no surprise, 'cause I burn. I am Woodman, and I burn. She blocks the sun with her hand. Knows what my mind is thinking. Is the ship at halt or just sinking? She blocks the sun with every rain. Reminds me of the fool's advice that love is not free in this paradise. Turning down the path, where are we? Where are we? It's simple at best. She blocks the sun with her hand, seems to know just where we are going, realizing with a smile there is no way of knowing. She blocks the sun with her pain, lies down to rest. The sky can't stop denying her soft request. Turning down the path, where are we? Where are we? It's simple at best. She blocks the sun with her hand. The sky can't stop decaying in this wasteland of vertical strain across blue masses to construct the center again, falling through the feeling in my hands, footprints in the sand. Where are we? Where are we? It's simple at best. She blocks the sun with her hand, seems to know just where we are going, realizing with a smile there is no way of knowing. She blocks the sun with her pain, lies down to rest. The sky can't stop denying her soft request. Beckon a galaxy to exist, contrast and chronic tendency. In visionary creed, we recite in hypocrisy. The primitive one says, let men draw quarters on rust breath, as impulsive at hate, and to relate. Clearly, Cooper, hysterical saint. Let it be in gods and governments, almost believe.
Okay, I'm here with Adam Rush, local poet, and I have a few questions for him. So, Tyler, when did you first start writing poetry? What age were you?
It was the 4th grade, so I must have been, I would imagine, around 10 or 11 years old.
Did your poem rhyme?
Not really. It did have some kind of form of an alliteration in it. I didn't know what that was at the time, of course, but it was more narrative or family related, personal. So at that time, I was really decided I wanted to be a writer. You're a writer or a baseball player, of
Right.
course,
Well, that's cool. Do you still have that publication?
oh yeah, I still have those poems. I used to writing these little examination books. They're blue now, but back in the day they would be more like a brown with hardcover. And because most of my family members are teachers, I had tons of these notebooks, so I would just fill them up
Right.
with as much poetry since the 4th grade going on, pretty much.
So you started writing more in high school, because I remember that you had a lot of poems in high school and stuff. Like you were into that then.
I would say, about 8th grade, I wrote my first quote unquote love ballad about someone. And then.
Did you give it to her?
No, of course not. Of course not. No, especially at that age.
How old were you?
I was in 8th grade, so I guess 15.
15, huh? So you don't want to release her identity right now, do you?
I wouldn't want to embarrass her. But so then I wrote a lot in high school, and then most of the time when I went to college, that's when I really got the most writing done, probably between the years of like 1992 to 1998.
And how many poems did you write at that time?
I probably, up to 92, I probably had about 150 poems or so. Now I have about close to 600.
So what was your first collection of poems or book of poems that you put together?
I published Obscene Letters to Mo in 1992. And that was edited by my friend Christina Monti. Just about 10 to 12 poems. And a friend of mine, Melissa Slotnick, was the actual one that laid it out and designed the idea. And it was kind of a joke because I used to write to her when I was in college, and she was still going to school here in high school. And her parents would say obscene letters. So that's how that title came about. Obscene Letters to Melissa, or Mo, as we used to call her. So,
right.
But that was in 92. So, and then I followed that up with Trench Madness, which was basically the same kind of idea. But this time I did a full color, 4-color cover this time with a real design, a little bit better paper quality, about 15 poems in that one with an introduction. So.
And then you started going to CDs after that, right?
Well, yeah, most recently I've been experimenting with music.
So when's your next book of poems coming out? And do you have a title with the poem selected in it?
I have the poems that have been selected. The title is still up in the air. I'm calling it Transit right now. That's the working title right now. It's probably about, I'd say, a little less than 100 poems. And it ranges from basically 1991, 92 to about 2012. So it's most of about 20 years worth of poetry.
So how many poems will be in this book, you think?
About 100, I would say.
100, awesome.
Exactly, about that area. Maybe a little less than that. I'll have an introduction, has an introduction already in the works. And it's going to start as like an ebook, basically, where you can get it online digitally, and then I'm hoping to get some publishers interested in it after that.
Well, great. Would that be like advertised on your Facebook page or your YouTube page or something like that? Where can we look for that?
Well, we can definitely look at my Facebook page, Adam Rush, ATOM Rush. You can also check me out on Amazon. That's where you can get my CD. Or you can also listen to it on streaming, Spotify, iTunes, all those devices. SoundCloud, I even have a SoundCloud site, a YouTube site as well, where I do some videos with you, of course.
Great. And so what were your major influences with poetry? Who influenced you as far as poets go? What are your favorite poets?
I would say Walt Whitman is probably on the top of that list. Allen Ginsberg, Charles Bukowski. I like Jack Kerouac's poetry. And a lot of obscure beat poets that I've never heard of, like Lou Welch, maybe, and Jack Michelin.
How about living poets? Like what?
Living poets.
Who's writing some good stuff these days? Besides you, bro.
That's a good question. I would say that modern poetry.
That's a tough one, right?
Has a lot. Has a lot to work on. I mean, I think when we think of poetry now in today's society, it kind of threads through a lot of music. Like Tom Waits is a poet. Lou Reed is a poet. Now, their music and their influences, Bob Dylan was a poet. So it's still out there. It's just, it's probably waiting for another revival. And
right.
That's the way poetry always is. Most of the revivals happen at the end of centuries, the 60s, 70s area. Like with the most recent Beat Generation in the 50s or 60s. And then, Whitman was doing his stuff way before that too. previous century. And you can go back, pretty much go all the way back, all the way through to organics.
So would you describe your poetry as a certain genre? Is there such a thing, or?
Jack Michelin used to call it outlaw poetry.
Outlaw poetry. Well, I think you're holding the weight for poets now, these days, dude. So people definitely got to check out your work.
I appreciate it. I take a lot of pride in, a lot of work in it. And
so we'll look for Transit coming up.
Transit.
And we'll look for that on your Facebook page.
And I have the Adam Rush CD as well to check out on Amazon if you guys want to check it out, download it. It's got about 9 different tracks, 9 tracks on it.
So I want to thank you for your time today. And we'll be making another video soon.
Sober at midnight, with a half-empty bottle of wine in hand, looking out a window at the vast dimensions of land, with my falling and rising eyes full of pain and pleasure, my body trapped in this smoke-filled room, the scent of strawberry incense covering the sweet perfume of marijuana being smoked by the dramatic burnout poets in the corner of the dark coffee house. She blocks the sun with her hand, seems to know just where we are going, realizing with a smile there is no way of knowing.
All right, I'm here with Adam Rush. How you doing, Adam?
Doing well, thank you.
Excellent. Now, we use a lot of music by a musician named Benoit in our videos. Could you tell us a little bit about Benoit, how you met him and so forth?
Benoit is a musician. He plays multiple instruments, mostly guitar. I met him in 1998 at Tuxedo Junction in Danbury. He was part of this group called the Film Arts Revolution. And he was the musical part of the film and the poetry. And it was a cool event. And after that, we exchanged numbers. And we've been hanging out ever since, playing.
What were you doing there? You doing a reading?
I was reading some poetry there, yep. With a few other poets in the area.
So what type of instruments does he play?
Well, guitar is primarily what he plays, bass, drums. His first instrument he ever tried was the saxophone. So he plays a multiple amount of instruments, keyboards most recently now.
So he likes jazz a lot, or a wide range of music, you'd say?
I'd say a wide range of music. You know, he's been in a lot of different bands, from world music to jazz to blues, he's in a Latin funk band right now where he plays keyboards. So he's kind of got a very wide view of different musical talents that we can work with.
And Benoit used to play a lot down in the city, or?
Well, after I met him in 1998, we ended up doing a lot of shows in the city. Mostly at this place called the Denison, where we'd host an open mic and invite all different kinds of musicians down, violinists, saxophone players, sometimes dancers for interpretive dancing. So it was really an interesting mix of musicians stuff going on. About a little bit before 9/11, so about 2000 or so.
So what part of New York City? Manhattan or?
Mostly the west side, 4th Street, Mercer, down in that area. The lower flats. We played a little bit at the Knitting Factory as well.
And so he also has a studio, and he's in the music production too, huh?
Well, now he's evolved to, you know, running his own studio, Studio Noir down in Long Beach, New York. That's where I recorded the CD with him.
And what's the name of your first CD again?
It's just called Adam Rush, but we call it Sauce on the Side, because that's the band that he plays with. It's Matt Barnello on drums, Mark Malone on bass, and Benoit's playing guitar. We also have Sylvia Milo on violin, as well as a few other musicians. So those are all the people we were playing with basically down in that time period.
And so I hear that you got another CD on its way.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, when we got together, we decided to record more than just the 9 tracks that you can hear on from Adam Rush on Amazon. If you want to get the CD, also have it on iTunes. The second part of it was more Benoit sound engineering, and what we did is we grabbed the musicians in the Long Beach area, most notably Dave Kellen, Dave Pellegrino, and we combined these local musicians into a project that we're currently calling Keg on My Head, and it will be a compilation of Benoit sound engineering, my poetry, and a vast array of different musicians.
And so are you guys trying anything new on this next CD, or?
There's a lot more instrumentation on this one. There's a charango, there's a piano effects track.
There's also some hip-hop beats and stuff too.
Yeah, you got to hear a little bit of that. There's definitely some hip-hop beats. We also have a mandolin that we play in one scene where it's the first time he ever played mandolin, Dave Kellen, and it turned out really excellent. And so we really are excited about the new record. It was probably going to be close to two worth of CDs, so maybe 18 tracks or so when it's done.
When can we expect to see that?
Probably early part of next year, I would say, January, February 2016.
All right, so we're going to look forward to your new CD coming out, Keg on My Head. So do you have any other projects that we could expect soon, or?
I am working on a poetry collection called Outlaw Poetry, and it's going to be consist of 4 chapters of about 25 poems, and each chapter will kind of represent its own little book. It will have its own artwork, front and back cover. That allows me to kind of market those little chapters at shows, and then the full version will be an electronic version to start, where you can download it.
Awesome. All right, so another question that we have for you is that I read a lot of your poetry, and I found that your poetry is not always metaphorical. Oftentimes your poetry is quite literal, which means that a lot of people always look for second meanings in words and everything like that, and they're too hyper aware on that angle. But you kind of write from the heart, and a lot of your poetry is quite literal. And I noticed that in a poem called Generator. Can you describe your poem Generator and how you wrote that, why you wrote that? And
It's basically a slice of life poem about the power going out in my condominium, and how all the different people in the condo have to come outside, and you see a slice of their life, you see a bit of their life and what they're trying to do and what they're up to. I would say that, you know, it talks about how we are kind of controlled by power, that without the power out, we're kind of wild children out in the night. And you know, I also touch upon, you know, the nostalgic fact of Monopoly by candlelight, for example. That's one line. We had to be forced to play board games. Of course, it's a little dated because now we do have, you know, your phones that can have all those things. This was also written when I was about 17.
so you're 17 years old, and the power goes out in your condo complex, huh?
Yeah.
But what came of it? Everybody walked outside and was hanging out together, right? So there was kind of a connection when that TV went out and the power went out, so everybody kind of came together outside. So
I was kind of focusing on all their little different stories.
So I want to thank you for your time today. It's been a good interview, and we'll have to do a follow-up video, and we'll tell people the link on how they can order your book and your upcoming CD with Benoit. We'll look forward to that. All right, Adam, thanks a lot, man.
Thank you. you.
All right, later.
Get in the car. Anticipate the roads with your eyes. Don't forget to mention people degrading each other. Don't forget to call. She would be the first to see you. No glory when you get there. Get in the car. He will only bite the roads, leave you shaped in his seat. Don't forget to mention to pray for the next caution sign. She'll be the first to say, no prize for first place. Sober at midnight, with a half-empty bottle of wine in hand, looking out the window at the vast dimensions of land, with my falling and rising eyes, full of pain and pleasure, my body trapped in this smoke-filled room, the scent of strawberry incense covering the sweet perfume of marijuana, being smoked by the dramatic burnout poets in the corner of the dark coffee house. Whispers at the night as a man with a shaved head stands fully erect with a blank stare, fire coming out his mouth and eyes, screaming his lyrics of social stability and his broken poetry. I am hard-barred Bukowski, relentless, chasing tail under red light, banging heads into toilets, nice peace in days, edgy no feeling, hard-barred Bukowski, with disdain and fascination. We are lost on the streets, waves crashing over rails, no place for the water to recede, our actions unable to proceed. Hard bar to everything euthanized and revolutionized. I just beg and borrow or brag, a nice piece in raz, thoughts ripped across broken glass. I am hard-barred Bukowski, ruthless, seek truth, track history from the source, warped and honest, the best minds into delusion, find resolution in crime, time spent on the hustle. You taking notes, sweetheart? We are rusted on memory, crashed on your floor couch, draining your supplies. I am hard-barred Bukowski, primed to steal your cut, raiding madness, scheming up windows, a nice peace in days, edgy no feeling. We are here to laugh at the odds, and live our life so well that death will take us.
So of course, after stealing everything from people, they don't want to give you any credit. All credit goes to them. And that is how these people act, who I knew in the Brookfield, Danbury area. They think that the book that I wrote somehow belongs to them, that I don't deserve to take credit for the book that I spent 10 years writing and publishing. They should be able to take that, sell that, make money off of that, and take credit for that. These fakes really believe that. So I want to tell you, nothing is worse than these people. These people are terrible. These people are beyond fake. If you're friends with one of these agents, chances are You're hanging out with 5 or 6 different people who all act as one person. You're not even hanging out with one real person. This is a fictitious entity that you're hanging out with. It is not a human being. It is not an individual. It is some entity that you're hanging out with that came out of the military's hind end. That is where they get most of these people, out of the hind end of the military. So he went by the name of Tyler Keur, and that's spelled K-E-U-R. And his mother's name was Rebecca. I think she goes by Diane now, in the Keene, New Hampshire area. She is one of the people who have followed me and my family up to the Keene, New Hampshire area, and she acts as Diane, who was my daughter's babysitter when they were younger. What's funny is that the Rebeccas are the female branch of the Oddfellows. The Oddfellows are a secret society like the Freemasons, and her son she named Tyler. And I guess in Freemasonry, a Tyler is the doorkeeper at their Freemasonic lodges, at their secret halls. When they're having their secret meetings, the guy that stands guard at the door is called the Tyler. And the last name Keur, K-E-U-R. I think that is a village or a city in the Middle East. And once again, that implies that it is a made-up name. People don't know this, but the Freemasons, also called the Masons, they got their name from the Masorites. And the Masorites were a group of rabbis who compiled the Bible, the Old Testament and the New Testament of the Bible. They're also called the early church fathers. They were rabbis. They were called the Masorites or the Masoretes. They want to tell you that the Masons got their name from stone builder guilds, like a stonemason. That's a lie. That's a cover. They got their name from the Masorites because the Masons are the inner group of the religions like Judaism, Roman Catholicism, the Nation of Islam. They all have secret societies, Freemasonic secret societies, and these different mainstream religions. And that is what the Freemasons are. And these Freemasonic-like secret societies are. They have nothing to do with stone building. They are the controlling faction of these giant religions and their militaries. So you could trace all of this back to the Middle East. You trace the Knights Templar back to the Middle East. They want to say the origin of the Freemasons, at least in Europe, is traced to the Knights Templar. And the Knights Templar were the European knights that were sent to the Middle East to learn about the mysteries, Freemasonic mysteries. And they learned that from the ancient priesthood, who were Jewish rabbis who lived in the Middle East. And all of these religions and their inner groups, their inner secret societies, the only thing that they are interested in is conquest, is invasions, is militaries, is mind control, is organized crime. That is what they are all taught in these secret societies. That is the inner group for all of the mainstream religions. What is a mainstream religion without their giant military to force everybody to see things their way? That is why religions, secret societies, and militaries always go together. So Tyler Keur is a made-up name, and his mother is the Rebecca's, the female branch of the Oddfellow secret society. And she'll name her son the Tyler, or the doorkeeper of their halls. And their last name sounds like something out of the Middle East, which you can trace Freemasonry to. So as you have heard from this report, the individual known as Tyler Keur was replaced by a Mike Smith starting around 2013. So in the spring of 2013, I had just published my novel. My first novel called Leech Mob, a novel about a Connecticut gang. And at that time, I was living in Derby, Connecticut. So I just published my book, but I didn't want the focus to be just on me, because people like Tyler Keur were also writers. So he was a poet. So I said, let's also work on your website, and you could do some of your spoken word on video. We could do more spoken word videos for you. So a lot of the emphasis went on him and helping to develop his YouTube channel and his poetry or spoken word platform. So I thought that I was acting as a pretty good friend to him, spending my time meeting him in the Brookfield area, videotaping him, going home and editing those videos, and often adding music, coming up with music or re-editing music and making videos for him, and then handing them to him on a flash drive that he could upload onto his YouTube channel. So all he had to do was read the poem, and I did the rest. And I did that because I was trying to be a buddy to him. But you cannot be friends with these people. No matter how good you treat them, you cannot be friends with these agents, because you are simply not one of them. So I said, let's also work on your website, and you could do some of your spoken word on video. And we went over to Williams Park, where they have hiking trails. And he took out some marijuana in a one-hitter. It's like a wooden case with a marijuana pipe that looks like a cigarette. And he asked me if I wanted a hit. So I think I took one hit. And whatever he had in that marijuana poisoned me. It gave me something like a heart attack. And after he poisoned me, he walked behind me instead of next to me on the trail. And he had this ominous, shady look on his face, like he knew what he had done. And he was waiting for me to freak out. And there were two more guys out there passing us on the hiking trail. One was this individual. And another one was this individual, who was a stalker. Here he is in his truck in Derby. I got him on video in Derby. And on the way to Brookfield that day to meet Tyler Keur at his house, there was a traffic jam on the highway. And I looked over, and here was this individual in an SUV beside me on the highway. So he followed me over there because he was working with Tyler Keur, also known as Mike Smith that day. So that is why Mike Smith gave me that poison in the marijuana that day at the park. Said, "Do you want a hit of weed?" And I said, "Sure." And when it started to give me breathing and cardiac problems, that would be when him and his friends would try to jump you. That is what these agents are like. Deep down, they hate you. They'll go out of their way to try to kiss your butt or just sit there and smile at you. But whenever they get the opportunity, they'll change into little bullies. And they wait for you to get hurt. And then they all want to jump you. Him and his friends would try to jump you. There's nothing better to these people than to watch somebody get killed. Because that is what these sickos are all into. in the militaries, in the secret societies that have taken over your government. That is what they are like. So these guys in the military got it down pat. They got treachery down pat. And another big thing, the military makes sure to program a lot of these agents through sexual abuse so that they are gay, they are homosexual. Tyler Keur is a homosexual. He gave me that impression a million times when we were hanging out. He would act very effeminate. You would have to be blind not to see that he was gay. Over the course of many years, I was introduced to maybe 2, 3, or 4 of Tyler's friends, and they all acted gay too. So they have some weird attraction toward you. These men have a weird attraction toward you. And since you are not gay, they don't like it. They are attracted to you and you are not attracted to them. So they have fantasies of having sex with you any way they can. And of course that is utilized by the US military when they want to attack you. They get a bunch of young men who are attracted to you, a bunch of gay men who are attracted to you, and will do whatever they can to abduct you so that they can get real close to you. So these people are very sick. The US military and the English military is controlled by a bunch of sickos. And guys like Tyler Keur and Mike Smith have a deep hatred for some regular straight guy that got married and had a family. They have no respect or a hatred for those type of people. And they'll do anything to destabilize that family, drive the guy crazy, poison them, get them to the point where they lose their job, they lose their money. Anything that they could do through the MK Ultra program, they will do. Because you are simply not one of them. No matter how good you treat them, you cannot be friends with these agents. These agents are homosexual, so they have relationships with other gay agents. And quite often, a number of them will all dress up like the same individual. So you have 2 or 3 men who resemble each other, all get a kick out of dressing up like Tyler Keur and hanging out with his buddy John. So you can't trust any of these people. These agents of the MK Ultra program and the US military are into attacking their own civilians now. They're into attacking their own citizens. And they make some sort of game out of it. This is their ritualistic process through the secret societies. That is where they have their meeting houses, where they come up with some of these military plans and how to get close to their targets, get into their targets' families, get into their targets' houses, and then kill them. They don't go meet at a base. They don't go meet at a military base. They go meet at the Oddfellows Lodge. They go meet at the Freemasons Lodge. Those secret societies are controlled by the military. It's like a paramilitary group. It like goes hand in hand. All of the Freemasons encourage their kids to join the military. All of the people in the military encourage their kids or encourage their people to join the Freemasons. So they go hand in hand. Whatever you join first, it's a good idea to join the other organization too. And that is how they attack American citizens. So this is the MK Ultra program. These people are all nuts. And they've taken over society. They've taken over the cops. They've taken over all the corporations. Your US government is not going to do anything. Your state rep, your congressman, your governor, the mayor, they are not going to do a damn thing but try to kill you. And that is what happens when a secret society takes over your government. This secret society is controlled by foreign governments like England, Germany, Italy, and Israel. And they do not like American interests. They do not like American rights. After all, the reason we have the American country is because the people in the past stood up to the tyrants, which were the English government. So the English has never liked America. No matter what they tell you on the news, these people are your biggest enemies. That is the English government. And they have taken over your country through secret societies. That is why you hear, if you want to be anything in the world, you better join a secret society like the Freemasons. There was a movie recently in the last 5 or 10 years about Facebook, a big social website on the internet. And I think in the first scene, the founder of Facebook, the CEO of Facebook, he's having a conversation about how Freemasons are in control of the world and how all of these famous people have joined the Freemasons, and they probably owe their fame and their success to the Freemasons. So it's that sort of attitude that has taken over our culture, that has taken over our country. And the truth is that these secret societies want you to join up so that they can pick the worst type of tyrants, the worst type of people that have no loyalty to others. They have no morality or compassion. And they'll be sent to go become your friend. They'll be sent to become your wife. They'll know you for years. They'll hang out and act like they are your best friend. And they will stab you in the back like that. And if they're having a bad day and they just can't work up the courage to stab you in the back, they'll have one of their stunt doubles. They'll have one of their doubles come in and act like them to do it. They have the whole game of treachery down pat. So you can't trust any of them. I don't want you to get confused about something, that some of them are good and some of them are bad. They are all scumbags who are involved in this. This is not normal behavior. They are all crazy. And they all really enjoy doing this. There's nothing better to these people than to watch somebody get killed. That's why you see so many slasher movies that are popular. You want some entertainment? Go see Friday the 13th. Go see Nightmare on Elm Street. Go see Halloween. Go see Scream. Go see the thousands of slasher, serial killer movies that come out every single year, because that is what these sickos are all into. In the militaries, in the secret societies that have taken over your government. And the one thing better than watching these slasher movies on TV or in theaters is to watch it happen live. And they'll get these little beady-eyed psychos who happen to be homosexual. And if these beady-eyed psychos could abduct somebody that they're attracted to and do whatever they want to that person, a lot of them get into that. I don't want to be called a homophobic. I don't want to be called some sort of racist against the homosexuals. Quite the opposite. I try to be their friend. I try to be Tyler Keur's friend. I did not care that he was gay. He acted very effeminate. I would ignore it. I would never bring it up. I would never bother him about it. I would never make fun of him. I would try to help him with his poetry and writing endeavors. I would treat him like anybody else. And in return for that, in return for my friendship and helping him, he could stab me in the back and set me up to get abducted or killed. So this is an inconvenient truth. They are homosexual. People have to start coming to terms with that. You want to think that some of them are bored gay? That's your business. I'm here to tell you that they take these kids and they molest them and they program them to be homosexual from a young age. The ones that have a problem with that become their targets. The ones that love becoming a little girl and dating older men and think it's so great become future agents with multi-personality disorder and sexual identity disorder. So a huge sign to look out for if you're wondering if somebody is an agent or not is, are they gay? If they are gay, I would say there's a 99 or 100% chance that they're part of the MK Ultra program. So I like to say any friend of Tyler is another one of these agents. And Tyler Keur knew Pete Monty through his friend, Christina Monty. So I guess I should start the story with Christina Monty, who was in Tyler's grade. So I remember that Tyler Keur showed up to pick me up so we could go out and hang out one night, and Christina Monti was with him. I think it was around 1995 or 1996, when I was around 20 years old. He showed up with Christina Monti to pick me up, and we would go take a ride and drink beer and often smoke pot. So I hung out with Christina Monti once or twice through Tyler. And like I said, she was kind of a weird girl. She had an unusual look about her. She had very round, blank eyes, very dark eyes. She was real skinny. She was kind of tall and lanky. And she would cut her hair straight across the forehead. The hair was long except for her bangs that she cut like halfway across her forehead. So I know that they worked together and they would carpool to work, I guess around that time. Supposedly Christina Monti got Tyler a job at the same office that she was working at. I do not know the name. I think it was either in Danbury or Ridgefield. So what is unusual is that Christina Monti began to look a lot like her brother Pete Monti. She had a Facebook page and it looked like her brother was dressing up like a female and having his picture taken, and they were uploading it onto Christina Monti's Facebook page. So it was like Christina Monti and her younger brother Pete Monti were doing this twin programming too. And Pete Monti is gay, and he'll dress up in drag and act like his older sister. So the weird thing about that is that I heard one story about Christina Monti, was that she moved to Milford. She went to Brookfield High School, and then at some point she moved into Milford. And she met a young man in Milford, and they were married. And they had a son together. And when the son was still young, her husband, her boyfriend, died in a car accident. They're saying that he died in a car accident. So when I hear this stuff from people who I think are agents, I don't believe them anymore. I just don't believe their stories anymore. Because I know what they are up to. And I know what they do. These agents of the MKUltra program and the U.S. military are into attacking their own civilians now. They're into attacking their own citizens. And they make some sort of game out of it. This is their ritualistic process through the secret societies. That is where they have their meeting houses, where they come up with some of these military plans and how to get close to their targets, get into their targets' families, get into their targets' houses, and then kill them. They don't go meet at a military base. They go meet at the Oddfellows Lodge. They go meet at the Freemasons Lodge. Those secret societies are controlled by the military. It's like a paramilitary group. And that is how they attack American citizens. So that is what I think Christina Monti was a part of. Christina Monti is a lesbian. She gave me that impression when we hung out. Tyler Keur is a homosexual. He gave me that impression a million times when we were hanging out. He would act very effeminate. You would have to be blind not to see that he was gay. The same thing with Christina. She acted masculine in a way. She acted like she was a homosexual. So in the MKUltra program, they will have their gay agents go meet one of their targets in a bar or at a party or at work. They start to date. They get married. They have sex. She gets knocked up. The guy mysteriously dies in a car accident or in some other way that the local Freemason cops will say is a car accident. All they have to do is light somebody's car on fire and say that he was in a bad accident, and who's not going to believe the cops? So that is a way the cops could say the body was badly burned or damaged in a car accident. And then the young woman, the young lesbian agent, is pregnant, and quite often she just hands the baby to the MKUltra program, to the Freemasons, and they do whatever they want with that baby. Very often they kill the kid, or they molest the child starting at a very young age, and the kid grows up to be gay. But these people are very big into human sacrifice and killing people. And the reason that they do that is because of the adrenaline content in the blood. When they take someone and scare them, a lot of adrenaline goes into the blood. And then they cut the person and drain their blood and drink the blood. The reason they do that is because it is a powerful drug with that adrenaline in it. And people have heard about that in religions, like in Roman Catholicism. Let's drink Jesus Christ's blood. So this is one of their big secrets in their secret societies. They're addicted to adrenaline-laced blood. So they are essentially vampires, and many of them look like it. So when I look at Christina Monti's Facebook page, and it looks like her brother is there dressed up in drag, and he'll dress up in drag and act like his older sister, I start to realize that Christina Monti may have come from a very sick family. I know for a fact that her buddy Tyler Keur over there would hang out with you and then say, you know what? I want one of my brothers from the Oddfellows Lodge to dress up like me and take over my role as John's friend, Tyler Keur. So any friend of Tyler's is probably a sick maniac from the Oddfellows organization who works for the MKUltra program in the U.S. military. So Pete Monty worked at Outpost.com. That was an internet-based company that sold computers and electronics mostly. And I started working there in the spring of 2000. And there were a lot of people working there. And then around a year later, they fired most of their people. And they moved their call center. I worked at the customer service call center. They moved it from Bethel, Connecticut, all the way to Kent, Connecticut, which is on the other side of New Milford. So for a while, I kept that job. And I commuted, it was like 45 or 50 minutes at least from my condo in Brookfield to Kent, Connecticut. And one of the people that they kept working there was Pete Monty. So when they only had a limited amount of staff in the new building in Kent, and they would put Pete like 2 desks over from me, I began to notice Pete Monty's behavior a little more. And what he would do is he would be sitting there with the headphones on, staring at me with this big, creepy grin on his face. And quite often, I wouldn't hear him taking calls. He would be there quiet with the headphones on. And if I glanced over at him, he looked like he was on some type of drug. His eyes were completely black. He had this beady look to his eyes, and he had this huge shit-eating grin on his face. Just this creepy grin on his face. And he would be staring at me, grinning at me. And of course, at that time, I did not give it much thought. So that was in the spring of 2001. So many years later, I would say 5 or 6 years later, I was living in Waterbury, Connecticut, and I was with my wife, Rachel Vogt. And once again, Tyler Keur would keep in contact with me, and he would call me up. Even if I changed my phone number, somehow Tyler Keur would get that phone number, and he would call me up. And so he would ask me what I was up to and if I wanted to hang out. So we were hanging out one weekend, one Friday or Saturday night, and there was a knock on his door, and Pete Monty walked in. And Pete Monty looked like he was on some sort of drug. I thought he was some sort of coke addict. And once again, his eyes are pitch black. And he has this weird grin on his face, just like he's completely insane. And he sits down real quick and he's looking at me and Tyler with this crazy grin on his face, like he doesn't take anything serious. And he looks completely out of his mind. So I noticed that Pete Monty doesn't like to say much. He just likes to sit there and stare at people with this weird look in his eyes and this big grin on his face. If you ask him a question, he'll come up with a really vague answer, like a yes or no answer. And he's very quiet. And if you look at him, he's taught to just sit there and smile at you and not say much. So I kind of got a weird feeling from him, and I noticed they were both acting very gay. So I think that he was saying that that he hadn't seen Pete Monty for a while or something like that. So I think that we went somewhere, we smoked some weed, and then I left because honestly I thought those two were gay, and I wasn't going to be a third wheel or interrupt their plans to have a little, relationship there, a little gay time between them. So it was during those times where I would see that Tyler Keur was gay. He would just act very effeminate, and so would people like Pete Monty. Over the course of many years, I was introduced to maybe 2, 3, or 4 of Tyler's friends, and they all acted gay too. So a huge sign to look out for if you're wondering if somebody is an agent or not is, are they gay? If they are gay, I would say there's a 99 or 100% chance that they're part of the MK Ultra program. And they have been assigned to work at the desk beside you. And when you look over and they have this weird beady-eyed grin to their faces and they're staring at you like Pete Monty was every day, he just might be an agent of the MK Ultra program.